Qualifying offers have been accepted. Some have been denied. Where does that leave the Toronto Blue Jays? Where does that leave Bichette? What is going on with the Rule 5 draft? We'll talk about it all in today's episode of Locked On Blue Jays.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Now the #1 sports podcast network. Your team every day.
Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. Lot to talk about. This is a big news dump of an episode here. Some of it's not that important. Some of it is super important. A lot of it is in regards to Bichette and what's going to happen with his off season, and a little bit is interesting in regards to Ricky Tiedemann. What is going to happen with him? The Rule 5 draft. Some of the guys that are protected now from each of these teams. But Carter, let's start here. Bichette did not accept his qualifying offer. I know, shockingly to no one, because Bichette was not going to take a 1 year, $22 million offer. That was just never going to happen. So I guess, what are your thoughts on this? I know there are a lot of people that come out that, obviously I think that a lot of people that watch this team consistently and maybe tune into our podcast consistently know that Bichette was never going to do this. But now he is opening himself up to being talked to by other teams. And I have a very good feeling that there are going to be a lot of other teams looking at Bichette here. Are you sort of in the same boat, or do you think that maybe the middle infield isn't something a lot of teams are going to be going after this season? Or do you think it's just going to be the top end teams? Where do you think this all lands?
Yeah, people always need middle infielders. Middle infielders are so important to a team's success. So this move just clearly shows that Bichette's market is exactly where we thought it was going to be. He is going to get more than $22 million AAV. It's the most obvious thing of all time. When you look at who did accept a qualifying offer, and we're looking at middle infielders, Gleyber Torres is now off the market, and he will be returning back to the Detroit Tigers. So that makes his market that much more competitive, because the fallback option you did have in Gleyber Torres is now gone. So 9 out of those 13 players that did have the options of accepting those qualifying offers did not take those qualifying offers. And it was probably the 4 guys that you were the most uncertain about. 4 guys that when you compare the markets and what they were getting with that $22 million, some people voted for the more safe route. That Brandon Woodruff was another one, guy coming off of an injury, kind of the same thing as Shane Bieber. Wasn't necessarily able to showcase his best stuff just because he wasn't playing the entire season. So taking that 1 year, kind of betting on himself, still a younger guy, looking to get the bag in the next upcoming year. So looking at the guys that did not accept the qualifying offer, it's the kind of the exact guys that you would expect. The Kyle Tucker, who's generating a massive market, Edwin Diaz, Framber Valdez, Dylan Cease, Michael King, Kyle Schwarber, Ranger Suarez, and then Zach Gallen was on here, which I thought was a little bit of an interesting one. It's not the greatest year from him in 2025, but all of these guys are going to have massive markets, and that's really what this qualifying offer is for. It's that safety net option, just in case, for the Blue Jays example, if Bichette does not come back, they will get a compensation pick because Bo is not returning to the Toronto Blue Jays. That is slated to be just after the 4th round. So they will get some sort of draft capital if Bichette's not back. But would you rather have, the 5th round pick, or would you rather have Bichette? So it's kind of just like a, something just in case as a safety net that you're not really hoping for, but it'd be bittersweet if you end up getting that pick. But not surprised at all with Bichette. This is just a kind of stepping stone in the process. Again, just helping the Toronto Blue Jays secure something if they don't get Bichette. But doesn't surprise me that Bo declined this whatsoever. I'm assuming he's going to get way more in this free agent market.
Yeah, and I mean, guys like Trent Grisham, Gleyber Torres, I'm a little bit shocked that some of these guys were even offered the qualifying offer. I thought it was a little bit bold, especially a guy like Gleyber Torres, who I don't know if he makes that on the open market. Trent Grisham, another guy that's interesting. I think he probably does make around that.
Yeah,
but
30 home runs, people are going to pay for the power. That's just kind of how it goes in the MLB now.
It's just a little interesting. And for some of these guys to accept it too, interesting enough. Brandon Woodruff, to me, makes the most sense out of all of these guys. Imanaga, I guess, same boat. 2 guys that, I can understand it from their point of view, as well as the teams. But Carter, and the guys that now, obviously declined these are all some of the top free agents in the market. And we've talked a little bit about some of the guys that the Blue Jays should target. Are there any guys on this list that we haven't talked about already? So Kyle Tucker, Edwin Diaz, Ranger Suarez. I would say the guys that we've sort of keyed in on, as well as obviously Dylan Cease. But the rest of the guys, Carter, is there any moves here that the Toronto Blue Jays would make in regards to these guys? Now, expecting the price tag for all of these guys, and they were going to be anyway, but it will be over the $22 and $0.025 million or whatever it's going to be.
I'd be okay if the Toronto Blue Jays got any single one of these guys that did not accept their qualifying offer. That's why they didn't accept it. It's the average amount of money that the top 125 players in the league make. And I think that these guys are amongst the best 125 players in the league. And if you have to pay a little bit more for them, I would not be complaining whatsoever. The only guy that I would be like a little bit iffy on signing is the Zach Gallen. Like that would be the guy that if they were going to sign any of them, if they got Gallen, I'd be happy, but probably the least happy out of all of them. I think there still is some question marks. But I mean, just going down the list, we already talked about Edwin Diaz. Pretty much talked about Bichette all the time. We're going to continue to talk about Bichette all the time. We've mentioned Ranger Suarez. We've mentioned Framber Valdez. We've mentioned Michael King. Didn't really go into depth too much about like King, Dylan Cease, the Kyle Schwarbers, but Kyle Schwarber might not be the best fit, but the guy hit 56 home runs last year. Like you'll find a spot for this dude in your lineup somewhere. So like there's obviously guys that fit better than other guys, but I would not be I wouldn't be mad if they got anybody on this list. But I'll name like 3 guys as like my main obviously targets, and I'll refrain from the Bichettes and the Kyle Tucker, which we've talked about endlessly. If there's 3 guys that are these ones that I would want on the Toronto Blue Jays, it's got to be one of those lefties, like we said, Framber Valdez, Ranger Suarez. I have Ranger Suarez as a little bit more of a fit for the Toronto Blue Jays just because of the locker room presence. Remember, Valdez could be a guy that if you're looking for a guy that might disrupt some things you have going on in the clubhouse, Valdez might be that guy. Again, that's big if, but Michael King is a guy we talked about a lot. And then probably Dylan Cease as well. I'll throw him on there again, reaching for the stars, but you have the 9 of some of the best players in all of Major League Baseball. So you would be excited if you got any of these guys, but expect them, obviously, since they declined that $22 million per year AAV, assume that they're going to get more than that. So if you're bringing them back to the Toronto, or not back, you bring them into the Toronto Blue Jays clubhouse, you're going to have to pay their market price for them.
Oh, absolutely. There's no doubt there. And we've talked about the importance of a closer. So we've talked a ton about Edwin Diaz. Like you go down this list, and I think any team would be more than thrilled to get any one of these guys. And the Blue Jays are for sure in on 2 of them, and Kyle Tucker and Bichette. But then they've had talks with Diaz. They've had talks with some of these pitchers. So it's interesting to see because we're still so early within this offseason that your mind starts to race, right? That this team could be in on any one of these big name guys. And I think at the end of the day, Carter, what it comes down to is not only the proper fit, but how many years. I think term's a big thing. And with all of these guys, that's going to be interesting because I think every single one of these guys is going to sign more than a 6-year deal. So maybe not Diaz. Maybe that's more of a 5-year look, but
I think Schwarber would probably be a 5-er as well.
True. Yeah. Yeah. So, excluding those 2 guys, you're looking at more than a 5-year deal. So you have to not only think about, and I brought this up a little bit on yesterday's episode, it's not only this season, but the long-term fit as well, and which guys are going to slot in well. And I think any one of those pitchers, Carter, could very easily come into this. Maybe not Zach Gallen. I'm not sure if you want to necessarily, if he's a long-term fit type of guy that you want to be paying for 7-8 years, but the Valdez's, the Ceases, the Suarez, I mean, any one of those guys you'd be happy to take as your cornerstone, another, face of the franchise type of guy, right? So it's a very interesting offseason because there are so many options available. It's just which one lands with the Toronto Blue Jays.
Yeah, it's going to be the pitching guys that you're really looking at here. Other than, like, you got the Kyle Tucker and the Bichette. That's why we didn't really talk about that. Kyle Schwarber, as much as it would be nice for him to be on the Toronto Blue Jays, and again, you get that lefty bat, but this is a guy that's you're signing as a DH. You're not getting him for his base running. You're not getting him for the defense. And again, the home runs speak for itself. The powers and the RBIs speak for themselves. You add Kyle Schwarber, this team is in a significantly better spot offensively than they were last season. That says a lot for how good the Toronto Blue Jays were. But just looking at team needs, we looked at, like, last year, what was the biggest problem throughout, honestly, the entire season? It was what you were getting from the starting pitching predominantly. A lot of the time, it was the bullpen as well. Yes, you can always add to your offense. You can always make your team more well-rounded and more well-constructed, but you need to get a pitcher. You need to get somebody at the top end of that rotation, even, if it is the middle or the lower end of that rotation. Even if it's the number 5 guy, you bring Chris Bassitt back. I think people are going to be a lot more happy with Bassitt back compared to what this starting rotation looks like right now. But you see some of those names. I mean, like, those are the guys that you're going to be hoping Blue Jays are chasing. And the reason why that, this team is always top 5 in payroll is because they get free agents like this who are on the market. So it's going to be those key guys that we're going to be talking about all season long. It's the Evan Diaz, Framber Valdez, Dylan Cease, Michael King, and Ranger Suarez. You can talk about like a 5-headed monster in a sense like that if you're looking at the pitchers and then that one bullpen arm, along with, again, some other guys like Robert Suarez, again, Ryan Helsley. We've talked a lot about some of these top-end closers, and we'll continue to do that throughout this free agency, which talking about these guys and like just having us speculate. It's only been like a week and a half where we've talked about free agency. It just makes me realize how much MLB free agency kind of sucks compared to a lot of these other sports. Because you go to the NFL, you go to the NHL, everything happens so fast. Like, you snap your fingers and half the free agency market is gone. And you had to make moves quick. You had to be in on guys early, and you had to be aggressive in the market. And while these teams are still being aggressive, it's just so much slower moving than any other free agency, which makes for some good and bad, because it's not just a week and then the free agency is kind of over. We do get to speculate for a very long time, for better or worse.
Yeah, and it is a frustrating bit for sure. I mean, it's sort of, you're waiting to start talking about the following season until you know somewhat what the lineup is going to look like. And right now, I think a lot of organizations don't know what that's going to be yet. And so you're going to see a lot of speculation from a lot of, podcasters, media in general. I mean, my Instagram and Twitter feeds are just full of Blue Jays conspiracy theories, it seems like. And, we try to be 100% honest with you guys about who we think is coming, who we think is not coming. But yeah, it's going to be a long offseason here until the first move does drop in the bucket. But Carter, I do want to take a break. We got to talk about the Rule 5 draft and sort of who the Blue Jays protected, why they protected them, and sort of go on from there. And then another little update on Bo Bichette and sort of his offseason, who's interested in Bo Bichette. We'll talk about all that as we continue out throughout the show today. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You guys know how much I love FanDuel. It's my premier place to place my bets. Usually it's on baseball, but there's no baseball right now. So I've been going hard into the NFL, back into the NBA, actually, and a ton on NHL. I love the NHL as well. But the NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of a game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps the game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Not a huge NBA fan, but over the years and getting back into sports betting, it's reignited that like of the game for me. So, I've been hammering the overs. I've been winning. So that helps too. It's a lot more enjoyable when you're sitting there and then, you see the bets rolling in. It's a ton of fun. So right now, FanDuel giving new customers $300 in bonus bets. That's a massive amount of bonus bets. Get on that now. But your first $5 bet has to be a winner. Head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Today's episode also brought to you by Doer. Yes, I absolutely love this brand. When you first order some things, you never really know what to expect, but it's the perfect, really classy but casual feel. It's like it got a classy look to their clothes, but it's also a great feeling clothes. So you're not feeling like I'm wearing jeans all day. It feels like I'm wearing something comfier, but still get the professionalist sort of more business casual look of their jeans, and it's really nice. It combines jean wear style with the kind of comfort and performance you get from athletic wear. Best of both worlds. They're designed to look great and stay comfortable all day long. Doer, they're pioneers of blending technical innovation with everyday clothing. They invented the original performance denim. Simply put, Doer makes the world's most comfortable pants without having to sacrifice the style. Trust me, once you try these, they'll be your go-to, and you can check them out in Toronto at Doer. It's on 44 Washington Ave. Pick up a pair for yourself or an amazing holiday gift. Mention the promo code LOCKEDONTORONTO in store to get 15% off, or check them out online at duer.ca/LockedOnToronto for 15% off. That's duer.ca/LockedOnToronto. So, Carter, time to talk about a guy that was protected. The Toronto Blue Jays have protected Ricky Tiedemann, their only ad to the 40 man. So he has been protected. So he will not go back into the Rule 5 draft. So I think a good thing for Blue Jays fans that, really haven't been sure about this guy for a really long time. So yeah, he's back on the 40 man roster, Carter. And, what are your feelings on Ricky Tiedemann? Because at some point, this guy has to make that next step, and he's got to get away from the injuries. We always make the joke that this guy sort of made of glass. Well, that's how it's felt over the past few years. We kept expecting his timeline to change and him make his MLB debut at some point, but we just haven't got that from him yet. So how do you feel about them protecting him this year?
It's just the upside. You absolutely have to. And that's been the reason why Ricky Tiedemann has not progressed. It's not because of a skill issue. It's because the guy can't stay on the field. You need to pitch, believe it or not, to actually get the experience and get your feet wet in multiple leagues. You can't do the Trey Savage thing, even if you have the ability, if you can't stay healthy for more than like a month or two at a time. Like Ricky Tiedemann, the stuff is all there. It's a lefty that the Toronto Blue Jays have needed for a very long time. It's a guy that should have been ready, honestly, in 2024 if you don't have all these injuries, and maybe could have been a massive piece to that 2025 World Series run that we just saw the Toronto Blue Jays go on. But he's got a fastball that's got some arm side run, like kind of sits mid 90s, can touch 98, 99, does have the ability to run up in that sense. The slider's a very good pitch as well. It's got a change up, kind of has the prototypical, like generic, pitch mix, but a lot of these pitches do play. Like the slider is very good. There's so much potential here. This is a guy that's been a top prospect for the Toronto Blue Jays. I believe he sits number 4 right now on the Toronto Blue Jays prospect list. Like there is a reason, obviously, that they protected Ricky Tiedemann compared to a lot of other guys that are still relatively high on the Toronto Blue Jays prospect list, but they decided not to protect. So whether he is a starting pitcher at the MLB level, whether it's a bullpen arm, which it's becoming more increasingly likely he's going to be a bullpen arm just because he is unable to stay healthy, but getting a lefty that, if with that velo increase that you usually get out of the bullpen, this is a guy that sits from normally 95, could bump up to that 97, 98 and be absolutely lethal. One of those guys that a diamond in the rough, you could say, even though he has had those accolades. He has had all the talks about him being an MLB superstar. We just need to see this guy on the field. So a move that you had to do, but this leash is starting to wear thin is what I'm going to say. And it's not because of a talent thing, but if he can't stay healthy for one more season, we know how injuries can derail a career before it even starts. And I just really hope this isn't happening with Ricky Tiedemann.
Yeah,
what we're seeing right now.
Yeah, that's the feel I get right now. I just don't know where to place him because I don't know if I should be really pumped up about Ricky Tiedemann or expect what I've seen the past bunch of years is that a guy just, can't stay on the field. I'm starting to lose my faith here. And so when they did protect him, I sort of did give a little bit of a sigh of relief, like, oh, thank God, maybe we'll actually get to see what this guy can do. But then as I'm thinking through all of this, I'm still sitting here wondering, what is the timeline got to be now? Like, yes, if he pops off the page this next year, maybe he pushes your hand to promote him. But it just doesn't seem likely. And especially with them possibly going out and getting another really good starting pitcher, your starting pitching becomes a backlog. And when does this guy's opportunity now arise? It could be because of another guy's injury that they get to bring him up. But, he's missed opportunities like that before because of his own injury, Carter. So I don't know. I'm very conflicted with Ricky Tiedemann right now. I think I still want to expect big things from him. But yeah, the faith is dwindling for sure.
Well, just going over the amount of innings he's pitched over the last, we'll throw 4 seasons. He didn't pitch in 2025, had Tommy John surgery. But in 2022, he pitched 78.2 innings in his 18 games started. In 2023, that's 44 innings over 15 games started. That's lower than 3 average innings per appearance. And then in 2024, when he did have the injury, started 8 games through 17.1 innings. That's 140 innings over the last 4 seasons. That is not a lot of innings if you didn't realize. I mean, Trey Savage almost got there and he started in September for the Toronto Blue Jays. So it's not a good situation to be in, but it's a guy that's still only 23 years old. This potential is still there. You have a better ability to recover when you are younger, and it doesn't look like there has been any setbacks from Ricky Tiedemann. And cross your fingers, knock on wood, do whatever you have to do. Carry the rabbit's foot around with you everywhere you go. I don't care what it takes. This dude just needs to stay healthy, and it's as simple as that. If there's one more injury, that might be the deciding factor on, hey, are we going to quote unquote waste? It's not necessarily a waste with Ricky Tiedemann, but if it's just a guy that's going to go on the IL all the time, you could definitely call it a waste. So at some point, you can't hold the 40-man roster spot for him anymore. But in this scenario, with all the potential that you do have and all the upside you do get from a lefty, whether it's from the bullpen or a starting rotation, in Ricky Tiedemann, you definitely had to make this move.
Yeah, Carter, and a guy that's sort of been slowly dropping from the Blue Jays' top, prospect list and slowly, slowly over the years. Yeah, he's now sitting at number 4, obviously behind Trey Savage, Jojo Parker, and Arjun Namala. So, a guy that still should be very highly touted. It's just, what is the next phase? And I guess we'll just have to wait and see what the season brings. I think a full season of Ricky Tiedemann being healthy will show us a whole lot of what this guy has in the bag and in the tank for the, his eventual rise to the MLB level. We'll just have to wait and see. But Carter, I did want to get into a little bit about what the new news around Bo Bichette has been. It's not groundbreaking stuff, but it really does matter.
I got some quick stuff on just some guys with the Rule 5 draft that they didn't add to the 40-man roster who now will be a part of that Rule 5 draft. And there's a couple of guys I want to list and then just talk a little bit about just how prospects kind of work in general, especially for the Toronto Blue Jays. So these are some notable prospects that were left off the 40-man roster. Yohendrick Pinango, who is the number 7 prospect on the Toronto Blue Jays. So this isn't just a nobody necessarily. If you like prospect rankings, this guy is number 7. Josh Kasevich, Chad Dallas, TJ Brock, Edward Duran, and Victor Arias are some more of these names. Victor Arias, I believe, is number 9 on the prospect list. Josh Kasevich, I believe, is number 12 on that prospect list. And then we do have one more. Edward Duran. Sorry, Edward Duran is the other one at number 13. Yeah. So exactly, you have 7, 9, 12, and 13 for prospects that are not being protected, are not being added to the 40-man. When you have a guy like Lazaro Estrada on the 40-man who did pitch again in the major leagues for, I think he had like 7 innings. He had that one start where he threw 4 and was actually incredible. And then after that, I think he got blown up a little bit. But you have a guy that's the rated number 22 prospect on the Toronto Blue Jays top prospect list be protected over a guy that's at number 7. So it's a little bit interesting there. The Yohendrick Pinango one was one that I was very surprised about. A guy that has it for power, had 15 home runs and 70 RBIs between AA and AAA. Got to AAA and then was a little bit worse. Did hit under the league median for weighted runs created plus, I believe it was at 97. So right around there. But again, when you progress leagues, obviously it's going to get harder. Still a younger guy projected to be in the league in 2026. And he's not necessarily gone. But I thought it was an interesting move to not protect some of these guys. Another guy was TJ Brock, who kind of had some comparisons to Mason Fluharty from last year. He's kind of going to come in out of the bullpen, a guy that threw, again, 95, 96, who had the ability to touch 100 and also had a slider that was pretty wipeout as well. So just some interesting decisions from this front office and picking who to protect compared to who not to protect. And there's a few shocking moves along with that as well.
Yeah, Carter, you know what, though? When I think about all this stuff, we always talk about that draft picks and prospects are a little bit of a lottery ticket here. And, that as much as us in the media want to say that, we're not sitting out here watching these guys every single day. They have their scouts and their player development watching all these guys and seeing who has it. So I'm guessing they're not making these moves lightheartedly. I think that they obviously, hope to have a plan with what to do with these guys. So if some of them, they don't see that MLB major league talent, then maybe it is just best to keep guys that you have a little bit more faith in at that moment and what's in need for the next few years with this organization. So yeah, it's always a little bit of a guessing game for sure.
Well, and there's one thing I kind of wanted to loop this back around to is like the Louis Varland trade. Who did we trade to get Louis Varland? It was the number 6 prospect on the Toronto Blue Jays. So for people that are like getting upset and mad when you trade prospects for just kind of giving up the number 7, at least having the opportunity to give up the number 7 prospect in the system for no fault whatsoever, just to protect Ricky Tiedemann, more so just to protect Lazaro Estrada, guys like that. Angel Bastardo, another guy that's on the 40-man roster. I think he's like the 28th rated prospect. So I just think that there's never really a need to be like hugging your prospects and like being like, oh, we cannot trade specific guys unless it's Trey Savage, Jojo Parker. Like the top of the line guys, I completely understand. But like falling in love with a random guy that's at like 13, like RJ Schreck, for example, or like Cutter Coffee, a random guy that was just traded to the Toronto Blue Jays, falling in love with guys like that and not wanting to give up prospects like these guys to get better at the major league level, I think it just always will blow my mind. Like, again, like you said, prospects are a lottery ticket, and sometimes you are going to get burnt. Sometimes you're going to trade a guy, and then it's going to work out. He's going to find something out from a different hitting coach or pitching coach, or maybe something will click that didn't happen before. So you always have the risk when you're trading these prospects. But I think most of the time, I'm going to fall on the line of, hey, I know what this guy is doing right now at the major league level. This guy is in the major leagues. He can help my team right now. Whereas this prospect, who may or may not be really good in a couple of years, isn't necessarily doing that right now.
100% agree with you. I mean, that's something that me and you have talked to death about in the 2024 year, right? Is how much value do you put in all these guys? And I think we're seeing what value is when your team is very good and you want to make moves. You don't necessarily care about that value as much as you did in the years where you weren't very good. So again, a lot more to talk, but we'll have a lot more probably on some of these guys when it comes to the Rule 5 draft at the beginning of December. We'll chat about that a whole lot more. But Carter, I do want to get and touch on this Bo Bichette news because it might make some of the Jays fans a little weary. So it's not just the Blue Jays, shockingly, that are looking at Bo Bichette. It is also the Boston Red Sox, Carter. How do you feel about the Boston Red Sox being in on a guy like Bo Bichette? I think this one was pretty well known that the Red Sox were going to be in on an infielder, but they are chatting with him and obviously throwing some stuff around. Do I necessarily think that Bo Bichette is going to jump at the chance to be a Red Sox? No, but you never know what they're going to offer Bo.
Yeah, like makes perfect sense. Like the Red Sox, they have a few guys that are younger guys, like Marcelo Meyer, who is a shortstop, but didn't really play shortstop too much, at least at the major league level with the Red Sox. Christian Campbell, their future second baseman, already didn't jump the gun necessarily, but got ahead of signing Christian Campbell. So that's a guy you want second base. And then with obviously Alex Bregman not returning, which really surprised me, honestly, did not want that $40 million average annual value, which I thought was a little bit bold to begin with, just comparing his contract to some of the other contracts. I mean, if you're going to play like Alex Bregman did when he was healthy in 2025, I think you're going to take that for what his value was. But not surprising that, teams within the division are in on a guy that they see, multiple times a year, 13 different times a year. Bo Bichette's been hurting the Red Sox, been hurting the Yankees. Those are two teams that I expected to be in the running here for Bo Bichette. I don't know what the fit is like necessarily in Boston. Again, when you have Meyer, who you project as your shortstop, and you have Christian Campbell, who can play that shortstop and second base, do they move Bo Bichette over to third? We've talked about how we don't necessarily like that as a Toronto Blue Jays fit. It makes the most sense, but how does Bo Bichette protect that third base? This is a conversation we're going to have so often. It's because there are so many different ways with Bo Bichette, like what you could project. Like, do you want him for 8 years? Probably not. But are you going to give him the 8 years so he signs with your team? Do you want him at second base, shortstop, third base? Do you want him just like to start at shortstop and then maybe 3 years down the road you expect him to be your DH? There's so many different ways to project Bo Bichette. So just might as well have the Red Sox in here, adding to the fun, adding to the nervousness that comes around with Bo Bichette. Because if he doesn't come to the Toronto Blue Jays, just stay out of the American League East. Obviously, I want him with the Jays, but if you're not going to return, don't go to the Dodgers, but stay out of the American League East.
Yeah, it's tough, right? They don't call it the AL Beast for nothing. Everybody here is trying to push to the next level. The Yankees, the Red Sox, the Blue Jays. I don't know what the Orioles are doing. The Rays will always just be the Rays.
If they get Bo Bichette, like Gunnar and Bo, like you'd have to play Bo too, obviously.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I just don't see that really happening. I just don't see the Orioles actually going out and dishing out the funds to get Bo Bichette over there.
No, I'm very interested in what the Orioles organization is doing right now. I'm very confused.
I'm expecting them to have a bounce back year. I had them as winning the division in 2025. I know the pitching's still not very good. They actually have to do something in free agency if they want to be good. It's such a foreign concept. You got to sign guys who want to make your team better. But yeah, there's still a lot up in the air, obviously, for the division. And as free agency progresses, wherever Bo Bichette, the Kyle Tucker, the big names, that is going to majorly impact who the AL East favorites are going into 2026.
Yeah, exactly. We always talk about it's a huge offseason. It seems like every offseason is massive for this Toronto Blue Jays team. But this season, when you are 2 outs away, an inch away from home
massive
plate.
For different reasons. Last one was like, hey, are we going into a rebuild? Now it's like, hey, how are we running it back?
Yeah. How are we getting back to the World Series? Yeah, it's a crazy time to be a Jays fan, but no better time to be a Jays fan. So, hopefully you guys stick with us throughout the entire offseason. We got lots more content coming for you guys. Hopefully more news, more updates. And if there's any big signing, we will be live, so you guys can jump on the live stream for those as well. Thank you guys as always, and we'll be back with you tomorrow.